Good morning, everyone. My name is George Johnson, and I will be today's worship partner for the service. And I'd like to welcome you all to Westminster Unitarian Church. Reverend Ellen is away this week, but our lay leader today is Amy Abel. Amy is a member of the church for 24 years and has held various leadership roles on the Board of Trustees and in many other committees as well, I could add. And she has led over a half dozen services as a lay leader. Quiet our thoughts and distractions and begin our worship by our Chalice Lighting, led by Amy.
The chalice is the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. If you have a chalice, now is the moment to grab that and a match. Our chalice lighting marks the beginning of our worship service. I invite you to light yours, and you can use the chat to post the name of the street where your chalice is being lit. As the theme of this month is renewing our faith, we will see the lit rainbow chalice used by our youth. And I will read the Unitarian Universalist principles. Because we do not hear them read aloud enough, and the Unison principles start with, we, the congregations of the UUA, covenant to affirm and promote. Affirm and promote. These are action words, and they make each principle more than a statement. The 7 principles become a call to action. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement of spiritual growth in our congregations. We affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of democratic process in our congregations and in society at large. We affirm and promote the goal of human community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And we affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. Our opening words from our hymnal, number 442. We bid you welcome. We bid you welcome, who come with a weary spirit seeking rest.
Who come with troubles that are too much with you, who come hurt and afraid.
We bid you welcome, who come with hope in your heart.
Who come with anticipation in your step, who come proud and joyous.
We bid you welcome, who are seekers of a new faith.
Who come to probe and explore, who come to learn.
We bid you welcome, who enter this hall as a homecoming.
Who have found here room for your spirit, who find in this people a family.
Whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are on your journey,
we bid you welcome. Please join with me now in our Unison Affirmation, which I believe will be posted in the chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service our mission. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Hello. Welcome to what I am calling Amy's Magical History Tour. When you take a journey with me, you can bet it will include music, especially for good health, history, and humor. 2 years ago, I confessed publicly that I often speak in song lyrics. And the example I used was, on a bad day, if you asked me how I was, my reply might be, another day older and deeper in debt. I even have a little meme by my desk that reads, if you can't handle me randomly blurting out song lyrics that relate to what you just said, we can't be friends. Now, we can't be friends, that's a little harsh and untrue. One day, someone stopped at my desk. After reading the little sign, she said, I don't get it. I used the example of the 16-ton songs, but still the connection wasn't there. And music affects different people in different ways. Victor Hugo wrote, music expresses that which cannot be put into words and that which cannot remain silent. But for me, it is through the words of the lyrics that my brain really processes music. And music is a large part of my life, even though I do not play an instrument and I do not sing well. You will never hear me sing out loud, so don't even think about me asking to join the choir. In 5th grade, I was asked to introduce the choir. I was not, however, asked to be in the choir. And music can change my mood and help me deal with the complexities of life. Music brings the joy that makes life worth living. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves to look for that joy daily, because at times the world can seem so bleak, especially now with the war in Ukraine. And I apologize in advance if you've heard any of my jokes and stories before, but this is my justification, my mea culpa. When I started coming to Westminster 25 years ago, there was a couple who were long-term members, Fran and Ed Armstrong. They were one of those families, the heart and soul of the community. Fran served as president, and Ed was involved in many things. One, a social group called the Beef Eaters. And I'll let you imagine just what this involved. You could tell from first glance Ed was a unique person because he used a cane that was made out of a baseball bat. I know, how cool is that? So back in the day, the Sunday services started with announcements said aloud, not from a worship partner, but from anyone. And you can guess this was a bit of a free-for-all. And this was before Westminster did Joys and Concerns, so announcements was all kind of rolled up into that one. And they could go on for a bit. One week Ed gets up and states, you know, at a Unitarian Universalist church, if you wait long enough after announcements, sometimes a service or even a sermon might break out. And later that morning, Ed told me, you could use that joke every 5 years or so, because the crowd was always changing. Always changing? That sounded a bit concerning for a newbie like me. But it has taken me a long time to see the changes Ed spoke of and recognize the changes were sometimes bitter, but it could also be very sweet. But oh boy, have we gone through changes these past 2 years. And I will be referring often to a sermon I gave in June 2020. You remember back then, that early 2020? A time when Westminster's doors were closed and we worshiped completely online, and the whole world was frozen in place. It was a planetary game of freeze tag. But if you did not hear that last sermon, fear not. I don't know about you, but there's nothing worse than reading the second book, only discovers it is a series, or watching the movie number 2 when you didn't see the first and none of the jokes make sense. So I will try to not have any inside jokes, but you do get to hear the songs I love again. Last time I introduced my pandemic playlist using music that helped me with my own mood disorder. This list includes The Police, Don't Stand So Close to Me, It's the End of the World as We Know It by R.E.M., Bee Gees, Staying Alive, Hall & Oates, Out of Touch, The Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand, 2 versions of the song Fever, Peggy Lee and Michael Bublé, Billy Joel, We Didn't Start the Fire, Billy Idol, Dancing with Myself, Paul Simon, Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard. That's the one with the lyric of Queen of Corona. Bob Dylan's song, The Times They Are Changing. And I like the version sung by Tracy Chapman. And Kelly Clarkson's Stronger. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. To this day, some of those titles still make me laugh. The writer Melissa Kirsch wrote this week in the New York Times, our playlists can serve as time capsules, providing a record of our emotions. The writer Melissa Kirsch wrote in the New York Times this week, our pandemic playlists can serve as time capsules, providing a record of our emotions and state of mind over the past 2 years. She goes on to write, I wonder what will become of these playlists years from now. Will we be inclined to revisit them? Or will we leave them to history? Fossils from a time we would prefer to forget. I personally always see value in the discussion and review of history. My song list also includes the song 6 Feet Apart by Luke Combs. This song was introduced to me by my coworker Ken and his wife Erica have made it their mission for the past 2 years to turn me into a country western fan. And just for a confession here, I have even watched shows from the Grand Ole Opry. And it's wonderful to think back about the development of this friendship. Before my last service, I was telling a co-worker about this sermon, and I was going to be quoting a song Kenny had recommended. The co-worker asked if I had invited Kenny. I had not even thought of including him. At work, I don't feel my most authentic self, and I certainly don't discuss my faith. And Kenny has given me permission to say publicly that he and I probably could not be farther apart in our political views the types of entertainment we watch, or most of the music we like. But if I had stopped myself from inviting these folks into my life, it would have been a huge loss. And it is important to remember this as our doors become wider, more open, that we not be afraid to invite people in just because of our own perceptions of them or their beliefs. I am grateful that Kenny and Erica did watch that last service. They were the first people to reach out in support, and they were the ones who encouraged me to be in the pulpit again. That, and when I encouraged budget cuts for guest speakers, I knew I should volunteer again, and I hope others will come forward to the worship committee with ideas for themselves as speakers. And the subject of this sermon also came out of the conversation with Kenny. He and Erica had gone to a concert of Luke Combs, which the song 6 Feet Apart was not played. I said I was not surprised. Think about the lyrics. One lyric is, I miss my mom, I miss my dad. Remember back to those terrible days when we didn't see relatives for many months, sometimes up to a year or more. And even more heartbreaking were the people who were dying in hospitals and in nursing homes without relatives by their sides, and the heavy burden placed on hospital personnel alone to bear witness to people's passings. And also in 6 Feet Apart, Luke Combs writes about missing his band and giving concerts, that terrible time of loneliness and isolation. And so I said, Kenny, of course he didn't play that song. That was then and this is now. That sounds like a country song, doesn't it? That was then and this is now. But we have come a long way in such a short time. Even as we lived it, it seemed to have gone on forever. And how often do we hear people say, I just want this to be over, for things to go back to being normal. But will everything be back to normal again? Just changed. And it is a little disheartening to think we will have other setbacks and new variants to deal with in the future. Think about how far we've come. Another song on my playlist demonstrates that. Do What You Can, performed by John Bon Jovi and Jennifer Needles. This, more than any other song on my list, shows how things have improved. The lyrics are, they had to cancel graduation. It isn't fair to Skype the prom. Our kids sit home in isolation. And it goes on to say, they turned off the Broadway lights. Another ambulance screams by. And there, by the grace of God, go I. Although I'll keep my social distance, what this world needs is a hug until we find the vaccination. There's no substitute for love. And here we are now. We have graduations. We have Broadway lights. And we, thankfully, have vaccinations. Now, looking back over the course of these 2 years, it is almost unbelievable how much we have lived through. This virus has affected every part of the world like no other time in history. From the isolated tribes in the Amazon who lost their oldest members, and with that, so much oral history. The virus left no part of the globe untouched. And how are we left to deal with the enormity of all that we have felt and the changes we have experienced? What soothes me again is music. And from the hymn, Now Let Us Sing, lift up your voice and be not afraid. Sing to the power of the hope within. Sing to the power of the love within. And sing to the power of the joy within. And that is the challenge, that we may find joy in the changes. I know firsthand about the constant changes in the faces of a congregation. Westminster had a longtime minister, Reverend Fred Gillis. On the occasion of his 25th anniversary, the congregation put together a scrapbook. I personally went through various picture directories to make copies of photos. 5 different books are a visual transition of children growing up, changing and graying hairstyles, and new members arriving, and people who have left from death or from moving out of state or from moving to different places in their lives. But we cannot yet envision the faces of the new members who will enter our doors in the future. And this is the joy I speak of. A couple of years ago, I was driving in northern Rhode Island, and I saw rainbow doors that said, "Our doors are open for all." I often wonder, what visuals can we put out in front of Westminster to say we are open to community? We are so good at teaching our children that we are Unitarian, Universalist. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. And as adults, are we as good at summarizing our faith and promoting it to the larger world? In last week's service, we shared our stories of looking back and our wishes for the future. And I hope some members of the congregation will come forward and share extended versions of their stories. I know I grew as a speaker from a panelist discussion I was on at Wells College. I was pregnant with Lee at the time, and my parents had died the year before. I was simply sharing my story, but when I looked into the faces of the audience, I saw their raw emotion because of the shared experiences we all have. And to you, my friends, value your own stories and do not be afraid to give it. My friends, value your own stories and do not be afraid to give of yourselves. As we in our beloved Westminster move forward, take comfort from the song. As we in our beloved Westminster move forward, take comfort from the hymn, Love Will Guide Us. The lyrics, if you cannot sing like angels, well, that fits me. And the next line is, if you cannot speak before thousands, I change that line to, I can speak before groups. But the next lines speak to all of us. You can give from deep within you, and you can change the world with your love. You can change the world with your love. Blessed be, and amen. Closing hymn is We Would Be One.
ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community.
Our Closing Words by Friedrich Nietzsche. And I said this the last time. I bet you're thinking I'm going to use the quote, that what does not kill us makes us stronger. And yes, Kelly Clarkson did use those as song lyrics. But that's not the quote for today. Nietzsche wrote, "Without music, life would be a mistake." I look forward to when we are together for our closing hymn and our holding hands for Carry the Flame.